Fani Willis is going to be allowed to continue her desperate pursuit of Donald Trump. Judge Scott McAfee has kept her on the case or allowed her the opportunity to stay on the case. I'm not real pleased with it, and I'm going to explain to you how this all connects to Black Democrats being the most racist people in America. Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Friday. Thanks for making it through the week with us. Awesome show planned for you today. Start pounding that like and subscription button if you're watching over YouTube. If you're listening over Apple, hit that 5-star rating. Help us fight the algorithms. This episode is brought to you by our good friends at Good Ranchers. Fall in love with beef, chicken, seafood all over again by subscribing at goodranchers.com. Use my promo code FEARLESS to get a free $119 Heritage Ham plus $25 off any box with your subscription. Shemeka Michelle is going to join me today as we discuss Fani Willis. I may also sneak in a question with Shemeka about my interview yesterday. I want her thoughts. My interview yesterday with Pearl Davis. We'll sneak that in at the end. At the close of the show, I'm going to address a couple of issues in the sports world, including Aaron Donald retiring. So stay tuned for all of that. I want to remind you the best thing you can do to support this show is go to blazetv.com/fearless. Use the promo code FEARLESS and you can save $20 on your yearly subscription. That's blazetv.com/fearless. Save $20 on your yearly subscription. It's the best and most effective thing you can do to support Fearless, this show. All right, let's get to today's fire starter. As expected, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee granted District Attorney Fani Willis permission to continue her racial hoax against Donald Trump. McAfee ruled Friday morning that Willis's affair with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade was not a significant enough indiscretion to disqualify her from prosecuting Donald Trump. McAfee gave Willis the option of removing herself or removing Wade from the Atlanta pursuit of Trump. Willis, of course, will remove Wade and soldier on in the far-fetched RICO case she's brought against Trump and 13 co-conspirators. McAfee's ruling is not surprising. It is, however, disappointing. During a 2-week hearing arranged to assess the impropriety of Willis's personal and financial relationship with Wade, Willis revealed herself to be an incompetent clown. She took the witness stand and presented herself as a combination of rapper Sexy Red and actor Jussie Smollett. Georgia taxpayers paid Wade $650,000 for his work on the Trump case, which won't go to trial until August. Willis claims she reimbursed Wade thousands of dollars for lavish vacations with cash she kept around her house. On the witness stand, she talked in the vernacular of a drug dealer. If a friend says I owe them a G, I give them $1,000. She insinuated that a medical condition inhibited Wade's private part from working while simultaneously stating she would never emasculate a black man. The Washington Post labeled Willis's testimony awkward. Now, her testimony was outrageous and embarrassing. It should have been disqualifying. But America loves its racial hoaxes, especially when they destroy the right target. Trump and his supporters are the right target for a racial hoax. Willis's prosecution of the former president for alleged election interference is predicated on racial animus. The entire prosecution is pinned on the hope that a predominantly black and Democratic Party jury pool will convict Trump and his allies out of racial and political solidarity. It's the exact same recipe that has convicted a string of January 6th trespassers of serious felonies. Atlanta, Willis's stomping grounds, has similar racial and political demographics as Washington, D.C., the city sentencing January 6 attendees to long stretches of prison time. No one believes Trump and his cohorts committed election interference, let alone a level of interference that justifies criminal charges. Asking a political ally to find votes is standard operating procedure in American politics. Complaining that the winning side in a close race stole votes is standard procedure as well. Willis's prosecution solely depends on anti-white racism and political bias. Come on, let's think this through. American justice is based on the premise that justice is blind. The Lady Justice statues found inside and around American courthouses wear blindfolds. A sworn officer of the court, Fani Willis, stated on the witness stand, "I would never emasculate a black man." She repeated it and said it with defiance. Let's watch for ourselves.
I appreciate that you want to say something, but I'm interested in, did you have contacts with Mr. Wade in 2020? And your answer so far has been yes, correct?
Very limited contact because Mr. Wade had a form of cancer that makes your allegations somewhat ridiculous.
And I do appreciate the characterization.
I'm not going to emasculate a black man, but I'm just telling you.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm not going to emasculate a black man. Did you understand that?
Imagine a white sworn officer of the court stating, "I would never emasculate a white man." That person would be considered a bigot and disqualified from prosecuting black people. The prosecution of Trump in Atlanta is a racial lynching led by a racist. Judge McAfee was too afraid to put a stop to it because he knows that anti-white racism is popular in Atlanta. Black Democrats are the most racist people in America. Yes, I said it and I meant it. That's my fire starter. I said it and I mean it. The most racist people in America are black Democrats. I'm sorry for having to say that truth, but there's just no question about it. This isn't some sort of deranged defense of Donald Trump. This woman said on the stand in a court in front of witnesses, and the lawyer that asked the question that prompted her response, he was so taken aback, he was like, "What? Say that again?" And she said it again. I just want you to think about it. If a white lawyer, district attorney, prosecutor, anything said, "I will not emasculate any white man," we would automatically hear that and go, but she'd be very comfortable emasculating a black man, or he would be comfortable emasculating a black man. And so Fani Willis said in court, "Oh, I definitely emasculate some white people." That's what she said. That's the normal, obvious interpretation of her comments. And that mentality is pervasive throughout Atlanta. And the reason I connected it to what's going on in Washington, D.C., and how the criminal justice system and racial animus are being weaponized to destroy people that one political group does not like. You go these major cities, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., that are predominantly black, and you string up the people you don't like. That is January 6th and why people are getting these long prison sentences. You couldn't do that in South Dakota. You couldn't do that in a bunch of other cities around the country, but you can do it in Washington, D.C., because everybody there is a government employee, everybody there virtually is a hardcore Democrat, and everybody there is virtually black. And so you get an all-black, all-Democrat jury, and you bring people in on January 6th who trespassed, who did virtually nothing, trespassed, and people are comfortable. Yeah, let's pretend like it was an insurrection, a gunless insurrection. Let's go along with that. And let's put people away for 10 years, for 5 years, for trespassing in the people's house. This all stuff, this is calculated. This is strategic. And so Fani Willis in Atlanta pretending like, oh, Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani, this is a RICO case. This is the crime of the century. They complained about the election results and they made a phone call asking someone to find votes. Let's put them in prison. The only place this could fly, there's only a handful of places where this could fly. Atlanta and DC are at the top of that list. And so because Georgia is a jump ball state, they're doing this in Georgia. And they're leaving Fani Willis in place because she's a mad, angry, black Democrat woman. She'll do this. She has no problem putting people or trying to put people in jail for doing absolutely nothing at the behest of her Democratic Party puppet masters. This is racism. And we keep having this conversation, or people keep, oh, black people can't be racist. Are you not looking at what's going on? It's the exact same thing, and this is why I keep saying, like, hey, these guys, they don't want to end racism, they just want to benefit from it. And that's what the last 15, 20, 30 years have been about as it relates to the entire culture in terms of like, oh man, I don't like minstrel shows, but I sure love it when these black rappers tat themselves up and act like a little minstrel show and put on little minstrel shows and denigrate our women and denigrate themselves and portray themselves as the most ignorant, violent people on the planet. Oh God, I couldn't stand it when white people did it. But now that we get to put on blackface, now that we get to put on the minstrel show, and now that we get the checks for putting on the minstrel show, we're all good with it. This is great. Hip hop is great. It's black culture. We don't want to end racism. We want to benefit from it. It's we like racism. We're overdosing on it. We're all sitting back, and people, I've had many people say, man, Whitlock's changed, and Whitlock used to didn't say things like this, or he would call out racism on both sides or unfairness on both sides, and I would. But now it's so overwhelmingly one-sided because the system punishes anti-black racism. The system does not punish anti-white racism. It rewards it. And so that's why I keep circling back to this topic and pointing it out as I see it. I've been against unfairness from the beginning of my journalism career all the way through. The unfairness at this point is so one-sided, and there's so little done about a particular form of unfairness. And there's so much reward for a particular version of unfairness that I have to speak out about it. I have to be consistent. And we have to accept black Democrats are the most racist people in America. They're very comfortable stringing up people unfairly. This woman went into court and bragged about, I'd never emasculate a black man. And the court did nothing. Judge McAfee didn't say, what did you just say? Hey, don't you know justice is blind? What are you doing? As an officer of the court, as a prosecutor, you can't say that. And it's certainly disqualifying. You can talk about the affair and all that. Her racism is much worse than the affair and the money she funneled Nathan Wade. The bigotry she displayed and the comfort with that bigotry, that's what should have disqualified her, but that's not what we do here in America. I'm going to extend the conversation and bring Shemeka Michelle into the conversation. Before we do that, guys, I want to talk to you about My Patriot Supply. We're all getting the sense that we're being lied to. Well, that's because we are. Suspicious events are unfolding. Even worse, it's hard to believe what anyone has to say about these events. And we all know the mainstream media has their own agenda. That's why you need to trust your gut and take action. It's time to get prepared. Get started at my website, preparewithwhitlock.com. Stop for a second. Preparewithwhitlock.com. This is my own personal website. Load up on a 3-month emergency food kits packed with ready hour foods from My Patriot Supply. You will save $200 per kit, serving over 3 million families since 2008. My Patriot Supply is equipped to help your family achieve self-reliance. These kits provide over 2,000 calories every day. Sealed inside heavy-duty packaging, they last up to 25 years in storage. Go to preparewithwhitlock.com and stock up on as many kits as you need from My Patriot Supply. They ship fast and free and arrive in unmarked boxes. Order by 3 p.m. and your order will ship that same day. Save $200 per kit at preparewithwhitlock.com. All right, Shemeka Michelle's just around the corner. Guys, I want to remind you about Roll Call 2.0. It's just around the corner, Saturday, June 1st. You need to be hitting our website, fearlessarmyrollcall.com, fearlessarmyrollcall.com. It's going to be amazing. We need you here in Nashville, Tennessee. We've got John Rich, we've got Mark Robinson, you got myself, you got Anthony. It's going to be amazing. Go to fearlessarmyrollcall.com to reserve your spot today. Shemeka Michelle, next. Hello, Fearless Army. I'm Jason Whitlock, your leader. I'm going to spend 2024 discussing growth and sacrifice. Hard times are here. Harder times are coming. What has stopped American growth and caused a regression in fundamental freedoms and values? A lack of sacrifice. Our ancestors sacrificed for our benefit. We have not sacrificed to protect the progress they died for. No sacrifice, no freedom. What impedes man's willingness to sacrifice? His ignorance, his perversion, his pride, his ingratitude, and his cowardice, his rejection of God. The Bible is a story about the power and the necessity of sacrifice. Sacrifice is the sun, rain, and fertilizer of growth. Growth is our life purpose. Grow in the knowledge, wisdom, fear, obedience, and reverence to the Most High. Growth requires sacrifice will be our theme for Roll Call 2.0 this summer, June 1, right back here in Nashville. We're excited to welcome you. Let me spend a minute explaining what GROWTH actually stands for us in the Fearless Army. The G is for game plan. In order to properly grow, it's essential we work from the strategic game plan spelled out in the Bible. The R, responsibility. As we grow as men, we understand and accept our responsibilities to God, family, and teammates. The O, ownership. We embrace ownership of our destiny. Outsiders do not determine our fate. The W, wisdom. We honor, value, and share the wisdom imparted to us by elders, coaches, and leaders. The T, trust. We must be worthy of trust. The reliability of a man's word defines him far more than popularity and material possessions. The H, humility. The reward for humility and fear of the Lord is riches and honor and life. That's straight from Proverbs 22:4. Come join us in Nashville as we talk about growth and sacrifice and how without sacrifice there will be no growth. Roll Call 2.0 right here in Nashville, Saturday, June 1st. All right, welcome back. Shemeka, I concluded my fire starter arguing that black Democrats are the most racist people in America. I know people are going to be upset with me, but when I sit around and think about, like, okay, let's say Donald Trump allegedly is racist. And he's allegedly racist because he had an opinion about the Central Park Five that they were guilty. And facts are that they actually were guilty. But beyond that, he had an opinion that people disagreed about the Central Park Five. He's racist because he says inappropriate things. He called Haiti an S-hole country. Donald Trump says some things that people disagree with and upsets people. That's why he's racist. Fani Willis is trying to put people in prison for complaining about the election and for saying, hey, can you find me some votes? Standard operating procedure. So she's trying to put people in prison and has the power. She's the district attorney. Donald Trump, back when the Central Park Five, he's just a New York citizen that took out an advertisement. He doesn't have that kind of power. And, they ended up not getting exonerated, but whatever, their guilty verdicts vacated or whatever. But anyway, my thoughts on Black Democrats as the most racist people in America. Am I nuts here?
I don't think you're nuts. And actually, Jason, the Democrat Party itself said that Black women were the big backs of the party. I'm sorry. It said it was the backbone of the Democrat Party. But we know that all means big backs, right? So I do think that they are very racist. I've always felt like liberal white women were the racist ones. But when you think of the fact that Black Democrat women can pretty much get away with anything, they have to take the title because they can say whatever, do whatever. We watched Fani Willis get on that stand and act a complete fool, be very disrespectful, slouch in her seat, talk slang. We saw her not carry herself with any type of class. And yet here we are. She's still being allowed to carry on with this case after how she acted, not only just what she did according to the case, but how she acted in the courtroom. Black women, as long as you line up with the Democrat Party, you can get away with anything, even blatant racism.
And so it's always an easy game to do, and sometimes it gets old and it's cliche, but to say, if a white person has said this X, Y, and Z. But in this seems so clear cut that if somebody white had got on the stand and said, I'll never emasculate a white person. You heard me. Am I clear enough for you? In what court would they be allowed to practice moving forward? And we would demand it, like, that person's a racist bigot. They cannot prosecute Black people, but it's almost like no one bats an eye about what Fani did here. And that to me is more disqualifying. Her comments about, I never emasculate a Black man, is more disqualifying than, her and Nathan Wade having a fling and her funneling money to him. And trust, that's disqualifying, but the other thing is worse.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's worse. And no white person would have been allowed to get away with that in no courtroom in America, period. And we all know that's true. There are going to be people that say, oh, that's not the case. Look at what white people have gotten away with for hundreds of years. They've had to hide it. It hasn't been blatant as Fani Willis was, and it especially wouldn't happen in 2024. And I think what's crazy is look at how the Black man has really had to take the fall for her. She's allowed to stay on the case. She was the one that initiated all of the unfair behavior or all of the illegal behavior, but he's the one that's going to have to come off of the case in order for her to continue to do it. So no, you wouldn't emasculate a black man, according to her, although she did, but you would certainly throw him under the bus and keep right on rolling. And that's exactly what we see happening here. He's going to have to take the fall for her behavior.
So I'm starting to believe the very cynical people that say Trump's going to be convicted. I'm starting to believe that, because I think Fani Willis being allowed to stay on this case speaks to like how corrupt things are within the Atlanta, Georgia criminal justice system, and that she's a representation of the jury pool that will be sitting and judging Donald Trump. And it's like, it's a jury pool that believes that Donald Trump is Hitler. And so even though these charges are trumped up and all that other stuff, yeah, we're putting Hitler away. We're going to be heroes. The media is going to portray, we can write books. We can do all kinds of interviews. And hell, maybe George Soros will funnel us some money if we convict Donald Trump. I'm starting to think like, they will convict him in Atlanta.
Yeah, he definitely won't be judged by a jury of his peers, for sure. I think it's going to be a jury full of Fani Willises, because they know that who can they use right now to do this or to carry out their dirty work? It is angry black women, the black women that feel like they are here to save the day. They are here to bring this racist man down, who had the nerve to say, grab him by the everything they think that Donald Trump is. That's really who their leader is, Joe Biden. But they're here to save the day. This is what they think, because no one knows better than the most educated people on the planet, as black women would say. They know better than black men, which is why they constantly belittle and condescend any black man that is thinking about voting Trump. They know better than anybody on the planet. So, of course, they're going to be the ones to make sure they bring justice to Donald Trump. So I'm with you. I feel like he very well may be convicted right here in Georgia, because you look at Fani Willis, you look at Letitia James, whatever her name is, in New York, they have it out for him. And they are the ones that's the face of bring Donald Trump down. Although we know they're puppets, we know that someone's pulling their strings, they're going to look like the saviors, because they're the backbone of the Democrat Party.
This is so odd and weird for me. I probably went as an adult. I can remember the first time I went to Atlanta. I believe it was 1991. 1991. Yeah, 91, 90 or 91. I think I went to the Peach Bowl, football bowl game that was in the Atlanta area. And then I think in 91 or 92, I went back to Atlanta for a National Association of Black Journalists convention, so at some point in the early 90s. And I can remember those first two trips, like going to Atlanta for me was like going to the promised land. I mean, I love going to Atlanta. That was the thing. And not that I ever went to Freaknik, because I didn't, but early on, Freaknik had that was a fun place to be for young black people or whatever. But I can remember all of my trips to Atlanta was like, oh man, I get to go to Atlanta. The Chiefs are playing in Atlanta, or the Final Four is in Atlanta, blah. And to now sit here as an adult and you couldn't pay me to even do a layover in Atlanta on a flight. If I'm flying to Florida and they say, hey man, you got to do a layover in Atlanta, nah, give me a direct flight. Let me do a layover someplace else. You couldn't pay me to go to Atlanta. I think it's that corrupt, and I think it's that dangerous, and I think it's that dangerous for someone like me who has Christian conservative values. I it's just too dangerous. I would not go.
Yeah, I was there in '94 for Freaknik. Hopefully, I make an appearance in the documentary. But I agree with you. My daughter was accepted to Georgia State. She was accepted to Spelman. And I just did not want her in Atlanta without me being able to be close enough to get to her very fast. And I think it's dangerous. I think it's dirty. And I was there a lot during the 2020 election just because, I had to speak or an event here or there. And I felt pretty safe in the places I stayed. But when you get out and you travel and you're going throughout the city, it's just not what it used to be. I can remember, as you said, it being like a promised land, me going there to Six Flags when I was a kid. And it felt like this was the place to be. Now, not so much. It's just not the same Atlanta. And when you even look at the crime and how high the crime rate is now, and the fact that you can't tell the men from the women, it's real. It's like it's a promised land, but it's a rainbow promised land now. That's what it is.
And so I will say the exact same thing about the nation's capital in D.C. I've never loved D.C. the way I used to love going to Atlanta, but I always enjoyed going to D.C. The television show Pardon the Interruption with Mike Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser, it's based there, and I used to be the top fill-in host for Pardon the Interruption, so I would go to D.C. a lot, and I would stay in D.C. a lot, and I would look forward to those trips. D.C. is another city that I want no parts of, and I know people will hear that and say, Whitlock don't want to go to D.C. and Atlanta, the blackest cities in America. It has nothing to do with skin color. It has everything to do with mindset and politics. These hardcore, passionate, Democrat cities, the derangement it sets off in black people, I don't want any parts of. I would never been to Idaho, never been to South Dakota, but there's a better chance of me going vacationing in Montana than DC or Atlanta. And never been, I don't even know what's in Montana, but it's like Idaho, I think that's, and again, people get upset with me, they'll misconstrue this or take this out of context, but it's like, isn't like Idaho or a place like that where like Mark Furman, the OJ cop, the racist OJ cop, that's like where they retire and stuff like that. I actually feel like I'd be safer around Mark Furman than the Alphabet Mafia in Atlanta and the drive-by shooters in Washington, D.C. I know y'all gonna hate me for that, but that's just the truth.
Look, I would just rather stay here right in my city, right in Durham, because I've always been told it's better to be with the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And I'm around black people all the time, but most of the time I know them, I know their family, their parents, cousins, or someone, and I feel much safer here than I will in a city who turn a blind eye to crime. So many times in these cities, they don't even arrest people. It's like they don't even see it. You can get robbed or, held at gunpoint and no one cares. At least here, I can call up my peeps and say it was that person and get some type of retribution, but you in these other cities, there's nothing you can actually do. Nothing that you can do. And so I'm not a big fan of travel to those places. I do it when I have to, especially when it comes to business. But when I make decisions for me and my family, if it's a city, New York is another one. I'm not looking forward to going to any of those places that don't have their people, under control or don't have some type of control over the city. It's out of hand now in many, many places.
I'm just, for someone like me, and I'm just being honest, I'm not so much afraid of the outside forces. I'm more afraid of being accused of something in one of those cities, because I know that criminal justice system, because of my alleged politics or just my worldview, I'm going to be persecuted. Oh my God, this guy doesn't hate Donald Trump. He's a sellout. Therefore, we can bring up some drummed up charges and lock him up. Again, I look at the people of January 6th and how they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly who that jury pool is. They know exactly what they can get away with, and so, because they're facing an unfair jury pool that will not judge them fairly and has been rigged up to hate anything that likes Trump. Same thing going on in Atlanta. And so it's like it's unsafe to be a conservative in some of these cities, major cities around America. It's unsafe being a conservative. And so I would love to hear from maybe liberals. What cities do they feel unsafe in for just being liberals? I don't know if there is one, but I know as a conservative, or someone who's called a conservative, and I'll take the title or the label for right now. I know as a conservative, it's not safe for me in certain cities because of my politics. And it doesn't matter what my behavior is. I just wouldn't want to be accused of something in a lot of these states, because I wouldn't get a fair shake from the criminal justice system, because justice is no longer blind. It doesn't, and people say it never was blind, but it doesn't even pretend to be blind anymore. And that's what bothers me.
You're right, Jason. And as I said, I feel very comfortable here in my city, but even like when I'm flying, I'm not the type of person. I see Bryson or even David Harris, they'll wear the MAGA hats on the plane or the Make America Great Again shirts. I'm the person that's going to fly under the radar. They may have no idea I'm coming into that city to set something on fire with my mouth, because I'm going to do a speech and I'm going to be very passionate about what I believe. But when I'm in certain settings, I fly under the radar. I'm on the plane like, can I get another snack? Because I just know that in certain places, I won't get a fair shake simply because I am a Black conservative. And just that alone is offensive to people. How dare you? How dare you think for yourself? How dare you do something that's a part of the group think? How dare you? The audacity. And that's how people will treat you. I don't worry about that in my city, but that's how people sometimes treat you abroad, unless you're in a big group. When you're alone, they're ready to do something to you. They would have accused me of acting some sort of way on the plane when I was just sitting there minding my business. So it is an attack out on conservatives, but I think especially Black conservatives. The men maybe don't have as much of a problem, but it's really bad. It's bad out here, and you have to always have your head on a swivel.
Finally, Shemeka, I wanted to squeeze in a question about my interview yesterday with Pearl. I don't know if you got to watch any of that, but I want your thoughts on. She was more formidable than I anticipated, and backed up her arguments, I thought, better. And maybe I just provided her a format where she could back up her arguments, because I really wasn't trying to debate her. I was just trying to understand her. But I thought she came across better than I anticipated.
I definitely thought she was better in person than the previous interview that you all did. I appreciated her maybe backing up her points a little bit more, or giving us some context to the things that she's maybe stated and not completely giving us her full train of thought. I did enjoy hearing exactly what she meant when she said malicious divorce, because initially I didn't know what she meant, and she kind of went into that and explained what she meant about a malicious divorce. It wasn't just divorce. it was, trying to take the house and take everything and, keeping the kids away from the father, which is something that I believe in as well, is wrong. I never feel like there's a reason to keep kids away from the dad unless he is physically harmful to those children. So I appreciated her going into some detail about that, and even her thoughts on marriage, and that she did believe in it, but she was kind of looking at how things are opposed to how things should be. Where I think, as I know I do, I look at how things should be, and that's what I'm focused on. And so I think she sees the problem, we see the problem, we just have a different solution. For us, the solution is getting back to traditional marriage or traditional roles, or God created man and woman, and he looked at man and said man should not be alone, so he created a woman. And for her, she doesn't so much go into the religious aspect of it. And so I don't know if I think her solutions are great, but I do think that she sees the issues, and we see the issues, we just kind of attack it differently when it comes to the solution. So there were things that I agreed with, like don't use sex as a weapon in marriage. That's actually in my book that was written 8 years ago. So I do agree with that. And then there are some things that I think that she needs experience in, like when she talked about the Daily Wire and the men over there and how they view marriage. They're talking from their actual experience, not just who they talked to or who they interviewed. It's things that they actually went through. And maybe we disagree with that experience, but it's experience nonetheless. And so I think with her being as young as she is, she's the age of my youngest daughter. I don't care how much you read, how much you listen to your mentors, there's still life that you haven't lived, and that's missing from Pearl's whole whatever. She's missing that.
Well, I don't think Pearl offers much in solutions. I think she diagnoses problems. I think she's trying to observe and say, here's what I see. And she's kind of throwing up her hands as it relates to solutions, or maybe she's just playing her position. She's 27 years old and she doesn't have it figured out. But what she did, it's like she confirmed or pushed me further along the road of fully understanding, like, no, we have designed a system that undermines and destroys marriage. We've designed a family court system and a way that we operate as men and women here in America that completely undermines men and throws the leverage and balance off in any relationship. And really, I thought that she's not saying it, but what I took away from it as I thought about it is she's saying that the entire system, from the court system to just the way we even view chivalry and the way, men pursue women as if women are the catch. She's like, this is all backwards. Men are the actual catch, and women should be serving men. And it's like your whole view on and it made me help me understand Dante, the young man from Ball State that I adopted and is, living out in LA and in a relationship, got 3 kids. Helped me like, oh, this is what the Hebrew Israelites, here's a white woman talking the way these Israelite brothers talk. And it helped me understand them. And so it just made me like, oh man, this system is completely hostile to marriage and men. And if we don't totally revamp the system, there is no solution here, I think is what her argument is. And I have to say, I tend to agree with her after thinking about it for 24 hours.
I do think that some of the laws are very unfair towards men. I do know that they change from state to state. I do know that a lot of people jump into marriage without understanding what those laws are. And as anything, our people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. If you know what you're getting into and you know the laws of your state or before you move into another state, it would actually better serve you opposed to just saying we shouldn't get married, because some of these laws are actually beneficial. If you have a wife, as I was, you came into the marriage, you didn't really have anything, and we built a business together, you don't get to just walk away and say, hey, you're on your own, figure out how to feed these kids we created. No, because I spent years building this with you. So we speak in French now, we will benefit from the business that we built together. And I think that's completely fair. Now, as again, when she went into some of the malicious acts that women will do towards men, I totally agree with her, and I think that's wrong. But I think you really have to know the law and know how it works for you and be willing to stand up and fight, because I've seen men, I know one that comes to mind right off, who fought the system and he raised his kids. You know, he won over the wife. But if you don't know what you're getting into, then you will be railroaded. And I don't think that's just with marriage. I think that's with anything. Read the fine print. But I do think there are some laws, especially when it comes to child support. Now, I'll say that I think hinder men, because again, when a woman has a hard time taking care of the child, government steps in and says, hey, I'm here to save the day. If the man has a hard time supporting the child, the government steps in, but it's to put you in jail. And so things like that, I don't think that's fair at all. Now, there are some things that I would argue with her about, especially the tender years. But again, I'm more focused on people and people having better values, because I just can't understand why you would get with someone, get married, have children, and within 5 to 6 years, you don't even want to be with that person anymore. You don't think that person should be a parent. That to me goes back to your morals and values, not so much leaning on the laws there for me, but just trying to get people to see things differently and to be different. Like having a heart change. So I think, yes, we do need to work on the laws, but people need to have a heart change. The way we see things nowadays is very cold and callous, and that's why we have a lot of the issues that we do. People need a heart change.
Thank you, Shemeka. Great job. We'll see you next week. Don't go anywhere. I got some additional takes that I need to get off my chest about Tiki Barber and Ryan Clark beefing over Saquon Barkley, and Aaron Donald has retired. All of that and more next.
It's my obligation, no hate, discrimination, raising up your hands for freedom.
Those truths that he spelled out
ain't but two genders. Get every word of this here. You ain't changed what God put in you.
play with a great mass of black people, not the ones on TV.
Welcome to the American Society of Magical Negroes.
Not because Michael Dyson and Joy Reid, and they know what they have to say to protect their paycheck.
I will do whatever you ask.
Good. But I'm talking about, he could take that speech to the Masterpiece Lounge, my father's bar in the inner city, and give that, and he'd have everybody put their drinks down, and they'd all be shouting in there, because they all went to church, all went to church, all went to church, all went to church. Whatever happened to that Texas border standoff? Join Jason Buttrell and the Blaze Originals team on a road trip with the Take Our Border Back. convoy to the front line of the border crisis as they uncover what was really happening during Governor Greg Abbott's fight against federal agents. Our team reveals the story the mainstream media didn't want you to know. Jason Buttrell and the Blaze Originals team found an alarming way around Texas National Guard border blockade to show viewers at home what is really going on. Media coverage of Eagle Pass painted an alarming picture of what's going on at the border, but the truth is, it's far worse. From a conservative estimate, 5.5 million people have illegally crossed in the United States in just the last 36 months, an all-time high. Blaze Originals reveals that the elites on the left, the right, and in the media all have something to gain from the border crisis and why those interests make it appear impossible to actually solve the problem. The mainstream media's narrative didn't pan out on Eagle Pass crisis, and the Blaze Original team shows why. Go to blazeoriginals.com and use the promo code BORDER to get $30 off your Blaze TV Plus subscription. All right, I want to transition into a couple of sports topics that I have to get into today. One involves Ryan Clark and Tiki Barber. The other involves Aaron Donald's retirement. We'll start with Ryan Clark and Tiki Barber. I'm going to play this stuff slightly out of order. I'm going to play it. I'm going to unpack this story the way that I discovered it. And I discovered it in backwards order. I saw a headline or something about Ryan Clark and Saquon Barkley, but I never clicked the video because I was like, it's Ryan Clark doing Ryan Clark stuff. And so I was very skeptical, and so I just didn't click. But then this morning I saw Tiki Barber responded to Ryan Clark, and that made me click on Tiki Barber's response. So let's start with SOT number 3, where Tiki Barber responds to Ryan Clark, and this intrigued me, so let's watch the clip.
Wow, Ryan Clark, you are making blank up because you don't know me like that, dude. I didn't even realize how long you were on the New York Giants. Your first year, you were a practice squad player. What is he talking about? I didn't embrace young players. Ask Brandon Jacobs if I embraced him. But now that he's the big wig at ESPN, he thinks he can just take shots and his word is gospel. So right, he's making a story that fits his agenda, and he doesn't know me well enough to talk about me. So shut the hell up, Ryan Clark. If you think it's cool and trendy to make me the bad guy because it makes you cooler and trendier, by all means, shoot away, Ryan.
Damn
Shoot
right.
away.
Ryan,
here's the point. I mean, he's uninformed. He doesn't know me that. He doesn't know me like that. Don't talk about me like that because you don't know me like that. You don't know my relationships with my team, my former teammates, the organization. You don't know my relationships with countless people around the NFL. You don't know, right? But you act like you know. You speak in a nice, calm, controlled way and give this like perfect troll job, not even troll job, but kill job of me. And it's not true. It's just, it's an opportunistic shot that he's taking because he thinks that he's going to gain advantage by being a jackass to me. Congratulations, Ryan. Good luck in your career as well.
So that's how I discovered what was going on. That was my first real introduction. Like, oh man, Tiki Barber's upset. I wonder. And then I remember, Tiki Barber allegedly all the websites, blogs, YouTube channels were picking up. Tiki Barber says Saquon Barkley is dead to me. That's what sparked all of this. Is that when Saquon Barkley signed with the Philadelphia Eagles, leaving the New York Giants, and just remember Tiki Barber's an all-time great New York Giants running back. Saquon Barkley was the next great Giants running back. Been there for 4 or 5 years. Couldn't get the contract he wanted. He's now going to the Philadelphia Eagles, which is within the NFC East. This is within the division. And so Saquon Barkley made a comment that like, hey, you're dead to me and good riddance, Saquon Barkley. Tiki Barber said this. And so people were upset, and Ryan Clark saw that Tiki Barber said this about Saquon Barkley, and so This is what Ryan Clark said that sparked that angry response from Tiki Barber. Let's play Ryan Clark.
First off, congrats to Saquon. Saquon earned that deal in Philadelphia, what he had to go through in New York to get through this point, being franchise tagged last year. Now we're going to get to Tiki. Tiki taught me what I didn't want to be as a veteran. Tiki taught me how you don't make a young player feel welcome, how you don't make a young player feel like this could one day be his team. The way he made me feel as a young rookie and a second-year player, I said I don't ever want to be that dude. And he's continued to be that person. Like you said, he left football early, fully expecting to be on the Michael Strahan experience. But you weren't that dude. You also weren't liked and beloved like Saquon Barkley is. You weren't that sort of teammate that everybody rallied around last year. And here's what I do know. I know when I have a relationship with you, when I can joke. I know when I can tell one of the homies or some young man I mentor or a dude I'm tight with, hey man, you're dead to me, because he knows he's never going to be that. Wow. He knows the relationship that we've developed is way beyond the jersey that he wears. And don't try to backtrack it once you say it. Don't try to ingratiate yourself to the New York Giants fans who may feel the same way, who you said you're echoing, and then say it's tongue in cheek. Nah, stand on it. And when he calls you out, stand on it. And the one thing people like him taught me when I was in that Giants locker room is I'm gonna have parties for the rookies when there's nowhere to go on the week they're trying to figure out if they're on the team or not. I'm gonna host Bible study. I'm gonna make sure you ain't using all your money at rookie parties. I'm gonna make you feel like, with you the OG, that that's the way it's supposed to be done. And he never did that, at least as what I could see, and the way he was to me as a player. And he's continuing to act the same sort of way in the media. And it's a reason people feel the way that he does, and nobody wraps their arms around him as a former player.
So, I see the Tiki Barber comment. I see the Ryan Clark comment, and I go, oh man, I forgot that Ryan Clark started his career out with the New York Giants, had a brief cup of coffee. He became a good player or a well-known player with Pittsburgh later in his career. But I was like, oh, okay, Ryan Clark is talking from a position of knowledge. And again, I'm sitting there like, man, Tiki Barber took this unnecessary shot at Saquon Barkley. And so I'm like, I have to admit, I'm like, man, I'm going to have to give Ryan Clark some credit. This is some decent commentary. It's kind of bold, blah, blah, blah. I'm kind of riding with Ryan Clark. I'm being completely honest. You guys know I most of the time I don't like Ryan Clark, but you've seen me like with Shannon Sharpe. I'm not a big Shannon Sharpe fan, but when he does something good, I praise it. Same deal with Ryan Clark. And so I'm sitting there thinking like, Ryan Clark's on some solid ground. Then I go look at the tweet between Saquon Barkley, because, you know, Ryan Clark mentioned something about Saquon's response. And so Saquon had tweeted out that a shot at Tiki Barber, you've been a hater since I got to New York, and all the dead to me talk don't smile on my face when you see me. Saquon Barkley tweets that out. And so I'm telling you, I'm riding with Ryan Clark. Saquon Barkley's got a problem. Ryan Clark's got a problem, and clearly there's some history here. And then finally I was like, well, let me see what Tiki said to start all of this. And so I went to the original comment. Let's play SOT 1, and here's Tiki Barber's shot at Saquon Barkley.
The fact that Saquon would even contemplate going to play for that team in Philadelphia is insulting to his Giant history and legacy. Saquon very well not be a New York Giant. I know that Joe Shane is having conversations, but it just doesn't feel like it's going to work out. Go to Baltimore. Go to Houston. Go to LA Chargers. Do not, absolutely do not go to the Philadelphia Eagles, because if you do, that appreciation and respect and reverence that we all have for you, Saquon, will be lost. It'll be gone. No. We want to still respect and love him. If he goes to Houston and he's down there with C.J. Stroud and they do some great stuff, and hell, he even wins a championship, we'll feel happy for him. Yeah. No matter what happens when he does in Philadelphia, we will hate it. Don't let the nonsense, Saquon. Don't let the Howard Eskins of the world and his traitor son who's going down the road influence you to go into the cesspool of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go kiss ass.
You're going to turn into one of those people that we hate.
Yeah.
And we don't want that.
Yeah.
We don't. Like, we'll respect you, but we'll hate you. And that's not a good thing. Your jersey, that 2-6 that we see all over the stadium, it won't be worn anymore.
Done.
It'll be gone.
Gone.
It'll be burned. In some cases.
Yeah.
Do not, without any doubt, go to Philadelphia.
So the part of the clip we did not play was Tiki had a little, when he said that, "You're dead to me," he had a clear smile and laughing on his face. It was a joke. And when you hear all that full context of, man, he's speaking as a former Giants fan, former Giants player, as a Giants fan, and as a New York radio personality. I believe that's Tiki on some New York-based show. Once you get all the context, Tiki's not taking a massive shot at Saquon Barkley. He's just not. And the whole dead to me thing was clearly a joke. And it was all in the context of like, man, don't do this to us Giants fans. We want to love you and respect you. It was nothing. And so once I finally got all the information and all the context, I'm now back to where probably most people would predict I would be, and where Tiki Barber is. Ryan Clark is phony, and this is an acting job. And Ryan Clark is trying to position himself as if he were some sort of version of Ray Lewis during his NFL career, that he was this ultimate leader and he was throwing parties for players on the day they would get cut, and that he was hosting, and I do think there is some actual truth that he did host some Bible studies, or he participated in Bible studies with his teammates. I'm not going to disrespect that. He's probably a heretic in there because they certainly never talked about idolatry in any of his Bible deals, but he probably was doing that. But trying to cast himself as the ultimate NFL guy and using Tiki, taking this cheap shot at Tiki, because he knows Tiki's not popular like that. Tiki had some issues when he transitioned into the media and things didn't work out. And so he knows he can get away with taking a shot at Tiki Barber because he's not that popular nationally. This is orchestrated. This is phony. This is about brand building for Ryan Clark. He's not sharing any truth. He's building himself up. He's recreating a narrative around Ryan Clark. It's a soft version of Stephen A. Smith. All of these guys are phony. All of these guys stretch, exaggerate the truth. None of these guys put themselves in proper context. It's all brand building. And this is what social media has done to virtually all of us. But all the people in sports, all the people on television, all the people that consider themselves influencers, they all lie and exaggerate and use others to build themselves up as the ultimate example of what you should do and who you should be. I'm the guy. I learned from Tiki Barber what I didn't want to be. And it's just like Tiki said, man, you was on the practice squad. You was on defense, I was on offense. We didn't even know each other like that. What are you talking about? And anybody that knows football knows, for the most part, there's a defensive team and there's an offensive team. Tiki's a running back, Ryan Clark's a defensive back. They're not, again, Tiki said, dude, you don't even know me. We weren't in the same meetings. We weren't on the same side of the ball. And at the time you were with the Giants, you were nothing. He was on the practice squad and, just barely on the team. So this is Ryan Clark beating the head in of somebody to build himself up. And so some people will say, well, some of my critics will say, well, how's that any different, Jason? You beat up Deion Sanders. You beat up Stephen A. Smith. And if I sat here and in any way tried to position myself as some great guy, some person that, in my time I did all the right things. And, I've always been, I do the exact opposite. And there's no criticism of any of these other people, from Deion Sanders to Stephen A. Smith, although, now I will say, I'm not a pathological liar like Stephen A. Smith. I never have been. I will say, I will differentiate myself there. But as it relates to idolatry, my food idolatry, my idolatry of promiscuous sex, my idolatry of radical materialism, big gold chains and earrings and all that other garbage, filthy rap music. I cop to all of it. And I use myself as an example of what not to do. These guys, Ryan Clark spends every waking moment trying to say, I am the way. Tiki Barber, he's not the way. I am the way. See, what I learned from Tiki is what not to do. And that's why I hosted parties for guys on the day when they didn't know they were going to get cut. And then after I got everybody high and drunk at a party, then the next day I would host a Bible study. I am the way. I can tell you how to balance being an NFL star and being a Christian who knows how to preach racial idolatry. I am the way. Phony. I side with Tiki Barber. Tiki, you nailed this. Great job. Last thing that I want to address is Aaron Donald, the Los Angeles Rams defensive tackle, has announced that he's retiring after a 10-year NFL career. He's 32 years old. He could probably continue to play at an elite level, but he's hanging it up. He's, with some tread still left on his tires. I'm not going to say he's in his prime. I thought his play did back off a little bit this year, although he was a Pro Bowler and still a force. But he's retiring with his health and at a great time. It kind of reminds me of Barry Sanders walking away or Jim Brown walking away with tread still on the tires. I think Aaron Donald was a Pro Bowl player all 10 years of his NFL career. He was a force from day one. He is one of the greatest defensive players in the history of the National Football League. I wish him nothing but the best. He carried himself, I thought, with a great deal of class. Great play in the Super Bowl to help the Rams cement their first Super Bowl title. When I think of, and this is for me, and you guys hop in the comments, here's my list of the 5 greatest defensive players in the NFL. You guys hop in the comments, tell me what you think, but I put my most controversial decision, I put Reggie White ahead of Lawrence Taylor. Reggie White, to me, is the greatest defensive player of all time. I say that as a former offensive lineman, and when I think of the number one person I wouldn't want the responsibility of blocking, it's Lawrence Taylor. I mean, not Lawrence. People, what a Freudian slip. People are probably sitting there saying, it's Reggie White. I mean, good Lord, I just saw Reggie White just embarrass people. I mean, just toss them around like rag dolls. And to me, he struck fear. Not that Lawrence Taylor didn't strike fear, but as a former offensive lineman, I want no parts of Reggie White. Lawrence Taylor is my number 2. Obviously, you can't say anything but great things about Lawrence Taylor and what a destructive force he was on defense. Ray Lewis is my number 3 in a controversy, or not a close call, over Aaron Donald, who is my number 4. I give the nod to Ray Lewis just because of the length of Ray Lewis's career and dominance in Baltimore, it's amazing. The guy, what he accomplished, I think over a 16, 17-year career in Baltimore, and in terms of defining that organization for that many consecutive years and setting the tone. Super Bowl early in his career, Super Bowl late in his career, I think 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. Ray Lewis is my number 3. Aaron Donald, number 4, and then the 5th greatest player of all time, defensive player of all time, in my view, Mean Joe Green. And some of you are too young to remember just how great Mean Joe Green was and what he meant to the Steel Curtain. But Mean Joe Green was Aaron Donald. Before Aaron Donald, he played in a different era where they didn't pass the ball nearly as much as they do now, and they didn't just turn loose the defensive tackles, the 3 technique defensive tackles the way they do now. But Mean Joe Green with us. Bob Lilly would probably be my 6th, and if you put Bob Lilly number 5, I couldn't complain about it. But anyway, I just wanted to end on that note, paying some respect to Aaron Donald. Great career, young man. Good luck in whatever's next. That's tomorrow. That means we'll see you next week.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on the corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom.